Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
I got it right that time. You know, I tell you what.
Nicely done. Racks on racks on racks. That's what you have, Brad.
Second time's the charm. You know, sometimes you just gotta do things over and over again, you know, till you repeat it till you get it right, okay? That's what my girlfriend told me years ago. Anyway, 7:26. I didn't say that, did I? No, okay. A couple things to talk about. First off, let me tell you the Jane Dueker story, okay? Now,
right, yeah.
Once upon a time, wasn't she like high muckety muck? Didn't she work for like one of the wasn't she like one of the governor's aides or something like that?
She was not only an aide, she was the chief of staff.
That's right.
To Governor Bob Holden, yeah.
And a very interesting woman, an attorney, and very outgoing and very strong woman, which, you know,
sure.
whom I like.
She is, absolutely.
One day, this is probably 8 or 9 years ago, she was on 97.1 talking about, and they weren't talking more politics, they were just talking like sort of small talk kind of stuff. And the question came up, is there anything that your parents did that today you'd be embarrassed to tell about? So she proceeds to tell the story that her parents used to own a disco back in the disco days when she was
I think I see where this is going.
When she was a young girl. And to the point where, as she described the disco, I thought to myself, oh my God, I think I know which one she's talking about. And I think I worked there at one point in time. So I DM'd her on Twitter, and I essentially said, I heard you on 97.1, heard you talking about, you know, your parents, you're embarrassed the fact that your parents owned a disco. Was the disco the distillery out in Baldwin? And she replies, yes, it was. I worked for her parents, Pat and Jack Eilerman. There were two couples that owned the disco, and at the time, the guy and his wife were the mayor, and I can't remember their names. He was the mayor of Baldwin, and Pat and Jack, it was Pat, and Pat was the nicest woman in the world. Pat and Jack were the other couple, and they were Jane Dueker's parents. Because when she got,
you know what I just brought up, by the way, not to interrupt, Brad, but I just brought up a clip. It looks like from the Post-Dispatch, 1978, and it's all about the distillery it says Kerrs Mill in Clayton.
Oh yeah. Barnett Lucerne. Barnett Lucerne.
Boy, these folks look quite 70s.
Yes, I worked there.
They look like they're going to give you a good deal on some ditchweed.
Ditchweed. I'm telling you, it was an interesting, and you know what? And it was a high-end disco. I don't know how in the world I got hired there, but I could tell you some. I could tell you some stories. As a matter of fact, it was in the Barnett Lucerne, which I think is still there, and for a while it was actually the temporary campus of I believe St. Louis Community College, is their West County campus or something like that. But on one side of the Barnett Lucerne, we were upstairs like in the hayloft kind of place. That was the disco, the distillery, and across the way there was this very fancy restaurant called Sam Wilson's Meat Market. And
I bet it was.
Yes. Well, and boy, those were the days. Anyway, okay, so Jane Dueker, now officially, she's like what? Like the legal representative for the St. Louis City and St. Louis County Police? Is that what she does?
I think she's officially a lobbyist. I believe she lobbies for them too.
Okay. She's on yesterday on KMOX giving the real numbers about the City of St. Louis Police Department.
Yeah.
And she's disputing what the city is saying. She's essentially saying that the numbers that the city are saying right now, and she said as of yesterday, they were giving a number which she says is 50 too high, and they're supposed to be at 14,000 or 1,400 police officers. I think that's their authorized force. she says the city says they're at 896. She says she knows for a fact they're at 842. So they're essentially 54 shorter than what the city actually said. And she says at this very moment, and the number she gave was 271 police officers who could retire immediately. They could literally walk into their boss's office and say, I'm out of here
today.
I'm gone. I retired today.
Where
do I sign up for my pension? I can't take no more. So do the math on that. Let's say she's right at 842. Let's just subtract 200 from that. Let's say 200 of them, not all 271.
You have 600 cops.
600 cops. You'd have half the police force. And then she goes into numbers about the numbers of police that are actually on the street right now of the 842. She says there's only like 400. And
I believe that.
And I'm going, okay, where are the rest of those guys at? I guess they're doing desk jobs or something like that. And she said, think about it. And see, this is like back in the day when I was police dispatcher, Missouri Highway Patrol, okay? Troop C is, I don't know how many counties, but the Troop C headquarters out there, 40 in Weldon Spring. They used to be right there at 40 in Mason, and they sold that property to, Barnes. They built their little children's, not little, it's a big children's clinic there, okay? That is the headquarters for Troop C, which is like, I think, 15 counties. It's St. Louis City, St. Louis County, St. Charles County, Franklin County, Warren County, I think Lincoln County, the whole bit, okay? At times, this is back in the day when I was a police dispatcher, at times in the entire Troop C, there were only 2 officers on duty in the entire district.
Wow.
And we're talking, if there was an accident, like let's say one of the troopers was in, let's say he was in Lincoln County, he was in Troy, and the other trooper was in, he was way out there on 44, let's say in Union, okay? And if there was an accident on 55, way down in southern Jefferson County, it would be an hour till they could get there. You know what I mean? And it's it's like how crazy is that? But I don't know. There's crazy stuff. Okay.
Well, and to be clear, just quickly, so Jane represents the officers themselves and not Tashara Jones' selections to lead the police. So I think that's an important distinction. When you hear police, people might all group them into one, but there's a difference between who Mayor Tashara Jones would appoint to lead the police, and then the police that are actually on the streets.
She's like their lobbyist, or is she their official legal representative, or what? Do you know?
I don't know what her arrangement is with them. I know that remains to this day a lobbyist. Yeah, so I'm guessing she's a lobbyist, and probably she does some of their. Clearly she does a lot of their messaging strategy.
Right. Because she's a social media queen. And I don't mean that disrespect. She's very good at it.
No, for sure.
You're like the social media king. She's the social media queen. See, what's interesting is, hey, let's talk about that for a minute. I just totally divergent. If you call a dude a king, it's a compliment. Sometimes if you call a woman a queen, it's disrespect, right?
I don't know. I think that among the millennial generation and among Gen Zs, they love to first of all, they call themselves queen. They're very solipsistic. Brad, the world does not exist.
What was that word again,
their
John?
Own ego.
What was that word?
The word is solipsistic. So I want you to picture a young woman on vacation with or without her boyfriend or whoever, and every photo opportunity that she goes to, every statue, every monument, if there is a beautiful object, her boyfriend will take a picture of the object and say, wow, look at this beautiful statue. And a girl will walk in front of the statue and arch her back and lean forward a little bit and maybe kick her leg up and, throw her head back and ask the boyfriend, who's an Instagram boyfriend, to take a picture. Because why? The statue's not enough. The world, for someone who's solipsistic, the world does not exist outside of their own ego and outside of they're the focus. The world revolves around them.
For those of you who wanted to lodge the complaint, that is John Combest.
It is John Combest. There's a great meme of this, Brad, and it shows an object, and it shows a man taking a picture of the object, and then it shows a girl taking a picture of herself in front of the object. It's solipsism every day. And by the way, I'm sure there's a defective set of men who are also solipsistic.
Well, you're painting things with a broad brush. I mean,
I sure am. Yeah, and we have stereotypes for a reason, don't we, Brad?
Within what you're saying, I believe there's a small minority that may qualify for what you just described, but I think the majority of men and women do not consider themselves to be like, I mean, they're sort of like me. They're sort of like a frog. You know what I mean? Matter of fact,
I'm the first one to say, and I remind folks of this all the time, Brad, social media is not the real world. So if you're scrolling on Instagram based on your algorithm and you're seeing a bunch of pretty young women posing in front of statues, that doesn't represent the real men and women that, shop at Walmart every day and just do their job.
Matter of fact, just yesterday, someone that I know texted me, and I won't mention the person's name, but I don't know how she found this. She saw this particular radio person, a picture of them, and she had listened to them on the radio quite a bit and had never seen what they look like. And her comment was, "Do you know?"
And you said he's super short.
And I said, "Yes, I do." And her comment was, "Now I understand why he's on the radio."
There you go.
Have a face for radio. Okay, the Mark Reardon story. So now here's what's interesting. Okay, let me get my phone. I'll just read this word for word because, and once again, I will say this. It's one of these things where, if you watch like the Olympics and you see the figure skating and you see the judges and you see what you think is an incredible performance, and the judges don't give it like the top score. Is it 10 in
Yeah, the East German judge is going to knock him down 1/10 of a point for something.
Right. Because they see things that nobody else sees, okay? Mm-hmm. And once you get into, like, for example, it's like, here's a funny story, okay? I love watching YouTube videos, okay? There's this YouTube video, which is pretty funny, of this guy. He's a young guy who is a certified welding instructor, okay? He does welding for a living, and he's like really good at it. He goes to Six Flags, and he takes pictures of all the welds of the various, like how when you stand in line, they've got
the shoddy welding jobs.
Right. He takes pictures of all the welds, and he's criticizing all the welds, and he's showing like, well, look at this. And what's interesting was, of the entire day at Six Flags, the best weld he sees is at a measuring device where it's a piece of stainless steel. It's almost like a square, if you know what like a framing square is. Yeah. But it's a long piece of stainless steel with a short square piece across the top. And this is the gauge they use to judge height on a roller coaster. If you are underneath that square, you can't get on the roller coaster. And he shows, looks the best thing. Okay. Having said that, I'm a radio guy. I hear things on stations. I hear technical aspects. I hear formatic elements. I hear the way people talk, what they talk about, what they say, how they refer to things. I hear things that other people don't hear because of the fact that this is what I do. I've been doing it for a long time. Okay? Having said that, I will say Mark Reardon is the best talk radio show host in town. Okay?
Yeah.
Bar none. Now, you and I talked about him because I went on the record as saying I didn't like the fact that he made fun of Mark McCloskey, that he would never interview him because he wasn't a legitimate candidate, yada, 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 yada. And we did a whole segment on him. What was that, like 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks ago, sure.
And we complimented the living daylights out of Mark Reardon. And I sent him a text because, I've got his cell phone number, believe it or not. And I said, hey, we talked about you this morning, and I gave him the link to the recording. And he replied back, I don't never listen to myself. Even if it's a compliment, I don't want to pay any attention to it because of the fact that I just don't want to deal with that. Okay, fine. So yesterday, out of the clear blue, matter of fact, I'm at Mickey D's, in the parking lot of Mickey D's, eating my lunch, and my phone goes off, and it says, let me see. Here, where he sent me quite a bunch of stuff. Yesterday, 12:26 p.m. Okay, I listened today. That's what it said. Okay. 2 to
now,
what
he said that, or you said
yeah,
that?
no, all of a sudden my phone goes off and it says, okay, I listened today. And I said, to what I sent you or something else? He says, no, today are the latest. I sent you the segment where we talked about you. He says, oh no, I didn't listen to that one, but you piqued my curiosity today at 11:15 mark. So in other words, you marked that in the recording?
Yeah, I had the timestamp, yep.
At 11:15 mark when you talked about McCluskey again. By the way, I agree, but let the people decide. But I ain't going to help someone I don't really respect at all. Maybe it's unfair, but he doesn't do it for me. Mary Miller will never be invited to my show. Who's Mary Miller?
I don't know who that is. I don't know. Maybe is she somebody in Illinois? Maybe
I don't know. He says I can barely stand Jay Ashcroft, but only because he's so boring. Okay, so
Mary Miller. I'm googling her. Oh yeah, she is a U.S. representative or maybe a state representative. No, U.S. representative. I don't follow Illinois politics, so she must be on the other side of the river. Go ahead, Brad.
Okay, she's in Illinois then.
Yeah, she's an Illinois member of Congress.
So anyway, him and I went back and forth, and he did say podcast sounded great, blah 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 blah, and and it was interesting because and then he goes into some personal stuff which I won't bring up about on the air here, and he says something about the radio business which, quite honestly, bothered me. So I'm supposed to have lunch with him next week. I've never met the guy. Now the interesting story is there's a group of people that and this once again this is another thing that bothers me. There was a radio station out in West County called the West County YMCA owned this radio station, had a license to it, called KYMC. And there was a whole group of young dudes, I don't think there were any women at the time, young dudes who worked at that radio station when they were in high school. And some of them were like in junior college or going to college and stuff like that. And I got the pleasure of, I was invited out to talk to a group of them years ago. At this time, the radio station was in an old house on Clayton Road. And I got a chance to talk to them. And what's interesting was quite a few of them have done very well in the radio business. And one of them was Mark Reardon, who
I remember the story.
Who I had no idea was in that group. A guy by the name of Greg Hewitt, a guy by the name of, who was good friends with my brother, who was a sportscaster, has done very well for himself, Mark Neely. And the sad part of it is the YMCA sold the radio station to a God Squad operation. And, and don't get me.
And not the Church of Brad, which might be filed after, after we raise 100K.
Right. I need to pay off. By the way, paythisoff.com, paythisoff.com. Okay, you have to take a break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?